Designing a car is easy. You just design one half of it and then just do a quick copy-paste horizontal flip, and would you look at that, you've got a finished product. Most cars are symmetrical. Why? Is it because we, humans, and pretty much every other living being are bilaterally symmetrical? Or is it just because of weight distribution, aerodynamics, and especially manufacturing efficiency? Yeah, it's probably that one. But even with that explanation, I'm technically trying to define an answer to this question when I really shouldn't even be doing that. Why cars are symmetrical just comes down to the following fact. This looks better than this. So that's why cars are symmetrical. Except they're not even close to being a mirror image of themselves. Details like fuel doors, tow hook covers, wipers, even mirrors, not to mention all of this, all serve to make up the illusion of symmetry. It's a facade. In Europe, cars are mandated to have at least one reverse light and additionally a rear fog light. If a manufacturer feels like they want to save a few pennies that day, what they'll do is they design the rear of their car to have one reverse light on the right side of the car, and on the equivalent spot on the left side is where they'll put the rear fog light. You could have two of each, but it isn't required by law, so oftentimes you end up with cars that feature a red fog light on one side and a white reverse light on the other side. Good luck trying to not notice that the next time you're driving behind a Passat. Sometimes though, asymmetry isn't a necessity or a way to save money. Sometimes car designers are allowed to get weird, designing asymmetry down to basic design elements and not just secondary details. These are true uneven car designs, and throughout history, they've actually been more common than you might think. All in all, I feel like the vast majority of these cars can be placed neatly into 4 different categories, depending on how they utilize their unsymmetrical look. The ones with odd doors, interesting intakes, just the weird ones, and Renault. Now when it comes to asymmetric doors, one on one side and two on the other, what probably immediately comes to mind is the Hyundai Veloster, Hyundai's flagship hot hatch coupe thing. But believe it or not, the Veloster wasn't even the first coupe to feature this 3-door setup. Rad. That's the word Saturn used to describe the 1999 SC coupe. But don't get too excited yet. Rad wasn't telling you how to feel, it just stood for, obviously, rear accessible door. One on the right side, two on the left side for easier access to the rear seats. Saturn was very proud of this idea, probably feeling that it kept up their image of being a different kind of car company, and thus marketed the 3-door SC like this.
Why didn't anyone think of this before?
That's great and all, except that this idea wasn't thought up by a market research analyst or a team of engineers at Saturn. Instead, the idea belonged to a Saturn dealer who brought it up during a meeting after his 8-year-old son complained about how hard it was to climb in the back of a 2-door coupe. That kid probably never saw a single penny from that thought. Anyway, years later, for different reasons, that same dealer who suggested the 3-door design sued Saturn. That's right, yet another victory for GM there. But regardless, the Saturn SC wasn't even the first car with an alliterative name to feature this 3-door setup. Mitsubishi introduced a variant of its Minica K car called the Minica Lettuce around 1989. A hatchback sold in supermarkets, with the thought behind it being to simplify the loading of shopping and children. This sounds like a great idea, which is why other Japanese manufacturers took notice of it, with cars like the Honda SMX also adopting this design. But the Minica Lettuce wasn't even the only hatchback in 1989 to feature this 3-door setup. As per usual, Ford was rather late when it came to introducing a 5-door variant of its Fiesta subcompacts. By 1989, basically all of its competitors were already offering a 5-door version. So to make a big stink out of them finally jumping on the bandwagon, Ford showed off the Fiesta Urba concept. Cool and sporty on one side, practical and, new on the opposite side. But in the end, it was just a preview of the new Fiesta, a non-production car for all intents and purposes. Quite like the earlier Peugeot 309 Break, a station wagon proposed to them by coach builder Houllier, which, despite looking production ready, was an offer never taken up by Peugeot. But the Fiesta Urba wouldn't even be the last asymmetrical Ford to feature an odd 3-door setup. And this is where I have to clarify something important. Prior to 1995, most minivans with a rear sliding door featured just that, one sliding door on the passenger side. The driver's side features the driver door and a massive panel of nothingness. This kept the costs down and the structural rigidity up. It also meant that most American minivans from this era were asymmetrical, though in this case it was a cost-cutting measure dressed up as practicality and never a design statement. As it was, arguably, Chrysler, who arguably introduced the idea of a minivan, arguably, to the world in 1984, it would also be them who would revolutionize the segment again by offering a driver's side sliding door on the new 3rd-gen minivans. And it's here where we slide back to Ford. The new Windstar had beaten the new Chrysler minivans to the market by over a year, which seemed like a great strategy, a head start. But that advantage barely mattered when Chrysler pulled out their golden trump card.
And here's something they've asked for: a second sliding door on the driver's side, available on all 1996 Dodge Caravan models.
Ford was, to say the least, blindsided and made a quick effort to retaliate. 3 years later, instead of changing the structure of the body shell to fit a sliding door on the driver's side, they changed the structure of the body shell to make the driver's side door longer. It was called Family Entry System Door because it was just longer. But regardless, the Windstar wasn't even the first American car to have a wider door on one side. The AMC Pacer's passenger side door was about 10 centimeters longer than on the other end of the car. You might think this was a production issue, but no, that is simply the way it was. As I mentioned, the second category that I made up encompassed interesting intakes. It's here where asymmetric design choices can often be used to affect performance and aerodynamics and aren't strictly designed around practicality for the user. Lamborghini's Murcielago LP640 featured side intakes where the left side has a large opening, feeding the oil cooler as well. On the right, you've got an indent. Similar story with the Alfa Romeo 4C as another example. However, those are expensive sports cars and not the cheap trash that I actually want to talk about. The Ford Escort GT. The normal Escort was a mild-mannered, Taurus-inspired little runabout that was eventually upgraded and became a GT. Look at that offset Ford badge and those angled strips cut out to become a larger intake required for that beefy 1.8-liter Mazda engine. This car makes me feel things. A similar idea for the Fiat Ritmo, except that the badge is not where it should be on that one. It's in the center. Going back to the list of categories for a moment, at the bottom there you'll see the word Renault. On many classic Renaults, including the 4, 5, 6, 7 and, that's right, 16, you have to look underneath their exterior skin to find the source of their asymmetry. Looking for ways to maximize interior space when developing the original Renault 4, they assembled a rear suspension setup of semi-trailing arms and torsion bars, which were mounted one ahead of the other. This design allowed both the left and right bars to be identical, but which also led to the wheelbase on each side of the car being different. This particular setup was later used for multiple other models and became kind of a Renault thing, just like, I don't know, being unreliable. Whatever, just think of a punchline yourself. But that's still practical reasoning. Occasionally, car designers are allowed to simply break the mold. For decades, Land Rover's Discovery has featured an offset license plate design on the rear tailgate as a homage to the original Discovery, back when they still held full-size spare tires on the back. And basically nobody appears to like this design. You can easily find kits online for converting your Discovery to be boring, mundane, symmetrical. People don't take well to these strange, different design choices. The Nissan Cube is probably one of the few cars to be bullied out of production, and that one has to be the poster child for these two words. Nobody even remembers that you could option it to have a carpet on the dashboard because everyone's fixated on this. Well, maybe this movement needs a better, more appealing face. I offered to the discussion the Anadol Böcek. Tasteful, classical, fantastic. To all Corsi members, I love you, including everyone who has joined recently, like Caleb Pearson, Vladimir Alexish, Akpar3339, Space Hobo, Yujong Love, Kian van den Akker, XX9, Tom Wildeman, VB, Max A, Dimitro Tonitsoy, Alexander Bondi, Thomas P, Upil15, Luna Lucifer, Caleb McLevy, Alex Ibarra25, RZ, Simon Gollitz, Magoo Harper, Sisa JBuzz977, Daniel Gaming, Kaviko, Dennis Peter, 550i, Nick Rustison, Trailblazer, Chovo HD, Isabel Nichols, Callie, PPPPPPP Pox, Axo, Luana Marina Lopez, Berkil Kemtekin, Hina Yupak, Basil 592, Cly, Alpter Abdusoglu, NCPHX 560, Jack Matthews, The Other Guys, Emre Furkan, Puddles, Gun Deep, Pegasus May K3, Pharrell P, Cam, Hemispherical, Knight Rider 745 Caleb, Sumner Fit, Dave Tissue, Thipao Mangle Shots, and Jack Eldridge.